And I think that's the mistake that I made, and I think maybe some people make, is once you've played a season or 2 or 3 seasons, you think that is it. This is going to be it forever.
Yeah.
Not knowing you've got to be at the races every single day.
So good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Recruiting Alchemy with me, Andy Simpson. Today's episode is something a bit different. A sporting hero of mine, maybe not quite, but former professional athlete turned recruitment entrepreneur, Malvin Kamara, founder and CEO of Vallum Associates, adopted northerner. But I'm really excited to hear his story from, professional sport through to the sector that we all know and love, and all the twists and turns that I'm sure happened in between. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thanks for the lovely coffee as well.
Is it all right?
Just what I needed, yeah.
Good man, good man. I'm really interested to hear the journey and the trajectory you've been on. I've been doing a bit of research on you. It's a real story.
Yeah.
But we always start every episode with the 2 beginnings.
Yeah.
Your 2 beginnings are more interesting than most. So take us back to, let's do the first beginning. Take us back to the early days, the genesis story of the Kamara family. Tell me a bit about where did you grow up?
Yeah.
What was life like as a child? All that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, grew up in southeast London, in Plumstead.
Yeah.
To the uninitiated, I always say Greenwich because it sounds a lot posher.
Yeah.
But for people that know southeast London, it's actually Plumstead that I grew up in, right next to Woolwich. Growing up I had an awesome childhood. I got twin brother, big sister, so there was always 4 of us in the household. Lots of chaos, lots of fun. I had cousins that lived all over London, so spent a lot of time hanging out with them. Had a great upbringing. Went to school in Plumstead, literally down the road from me initially, and then went to secondary school in Kidbrooke, a place called Thomas Tallis. Great set of friends, great set of people, and my big brother, to the annoyance of my dad, became an Arsenal fan. So me and my twin brother ended up supporting Arsenal, whereas my dad was a Tottenham fan. Oh. So I do have a secret love spot for Spurs. If my brothers are watching, I do apologise, but I'm a bit one of those Arsenal fans that I don't mind a bit of Spurs. My mates will all be pleased to hear me say that as well, because a lot of them are Spurs fans as well.
Football was your first love?
Yeah, definitely. It's fair to say football was definitely my first love. Me and my brother used to play it in the front room when my mum went out. We'd move all the chairs and play against each other. And then going into primary school, entered a Sunday League team called Teviot Rangers, which is where I really found my passion. And actually where I found that I suppose... the way it manifested as a kid wasn't ideal, because I used to cry every single time we lost, and everyone else on my team would be like, why are you crying? But I used to take each loss so personally, and actually, being weird, fast forward, and that's something that's always stayed with me, and actually drove a lot of the success that I had particularly in my early years in recruitment, in terms of taking each loss really personally, which probably a bit of a bad thing sometimes, maybe a bit ADHD or whatever, but that would always drive me to be like, right, the next time I am not going to lose. So I would literally work day and night on any vacancy I had. But going back, playing football, started at Teviot Rangers and then came pretty good. I think I was their all-time leading scorer. Went on to then play for the school team, at which I was picked up by the district, Blackheath district. That's where I kind of really got into the bit more serious side of football, where a lot of my teammates at that time were playing youth football for professional clubs, where I met a number of my best friends. Anton Ferdinand played for my district side when we were kids. And that's where I got picked up initially by West Ham, and obviously that's where me and Anton became a bit closer. I went to play for West Ham when I was like 13. And that was a kind of a baptism of fire. I found out that, Sunday League, I was always used to being the best person on the pitch, but then going into to play for West Ham, found, oh my God, there's people that are just as good or if not better than I am. So that was kind of a weird adjustment for me to make. So I found it quite difficult in my first, I'd say, year in kind of professional youth football. Ended up getting released from West Ham, and I remember when I got released from West Ham, that was my first real taste of rejection. It was me and a chap called Glenn Johnson, who many people may have heard of. Me and him got
player.
Got pulled aside. Oh, what are you trying to say?
Sorry, that's horrible. But he went on to have to play for England, right?
Yeah, he went on to play for England, Liverpool, Chelsea, proper career, proper bloke as well. He's from Dartford, not far from me. So me and Glenn got pulled aside. I remember our coach at the time, fantastic coach, pulled us aside and was like, look, you guys aren't really going to play much this season. Glenn was, I think, a year younger than us, but was playing up. But it's like, you're not going to play much this season. So, so I ended up then leaving. They were like, look, you're not going to play. We're going to let you go. I left. Glenn stayed, obviously went on and became a superstar.
Yeah. But just so you're a teenager, right?
Yeah, I was 14 at the time.
Do you remember how you felt at the time?
Oh, devastating. I remember going to my bedroom and thinking my life was over. Trying to come up with, what am I going to tell my friends? Where can I play? Where can I get a club next? And that was an awful time. Awful time. And
because your whole life is just bundled into this one.
I remember I always told everyone, including career coaches at secondary school. I remember I actually walked out on one of my career coaching sessions because I told her I was going to be a professional footballer, and she was like, "No, come on, what are you really going to be?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to be a footballer." And because she wouldn't listen to that, I just like, you know what, this is over, and I walked out of the session with her because she wouldn't take what I was saying serious. So all of those kind of things are going through your mind when you get released, and as I say. I was fortunate enough that I was resilient enough. I had my twin brother who me and him at the time were really close. I had him to kind of like talk to. I had my mum. I had my big brother as well, and also had a really good set of friends. And actually, again, shameless name drops, but at the time, Kieran Richardson, again, who lived in South East London, is from South East London. We played for the same district. Me, him and Anton were kind of fairly close. They were both a year below me.
He played at Man United, didn't he?
He played at Man United, but they were both really good. So they played up in my year. Yeah. And Kieran's dad would always take us to training. So Kieran's dad actually hooked me up with all my trials that I went to after that. So he put me into Charlton and ended up putting me into Wimbledon, which is where I ended up staying, making a home, and becoming a professional footballer. So I was fairly fortunate at that time that even though I'd been through that rejection at West Ham, I had a good enough network through Kieran's dad that I was able to go and get trials elsewhere and ended up landing a contract at Wimbledon.
Amazing. Was there ever a moment where you thought this isn't going to work?
I think during that period where I was out of contract, yes. Where I was just like, what am I going to do? Like in terms of, that was always what my career aspiration had been. And I'm a young kid, right? So there's, at the time, if you could go back, you'd be like, you got everything that you can go and do. But that was my sole focus. So during that time when I didn't have a contract, I was thinking, wow. Yeah. I'm a bit of confusion. But the minute I landed at Wimbledon and ended up, they said they were going to take me on, I kind of knew I was going to go on and make it. I didn't know to what degree, but I knew I would make it.
You'd have a career in professional football. I knew I'd have a career
in professional football, yeah, definitely. And as I say, I was really fortunate, I think, that I did go to Wimbledon, because everyone who I grew up with there, they're still, even though I don't see or talk to any of them, I still consider them family. Everyone who was in my age group, year below me, year above me, couple of years above me, it was such a tight-knit group of individuals, and probably every footballer says that about their own club, but I genuinely believe that those guys at the time, they were like extended family. Every day wasn't like going to work. It was like playing football with your best mates, but you had 30 of them, and we had so much fun. It was unreal.
Yeah. And I'd love to spend the whole hour talking about your career in professional football, but we won't do that. But we will take a quick pit stop at the mighty Port Vale. So you joined my team, Port Vale, in 2007.
About that,
Yeah, and you played for us for a season.
Yeah.
I was asking some of my mates, we remember you as a sort of powerful sort of right winger.
Right wing. Terrible first touch, but rapid.
Yeah. Gas, mate. That's what everyone said. He had gas. And my best mate, one of my best mates, a guy called Keith. He's a diehard Vale fan, so I said we would give him a little shout out on the pod. So
hey, Keith.
There you go, Keith. You've had your little shout out, mate. Your day is made. So when did you retire from professional football? And was it through choice or circumstance?
No, it was. So after Port Vale, I ended up going to Huddersfield Town. So signed at Huddersfield, and my first season went fairly well under Andy Ritchie. Put a mid-table kind of nobodies. But I personally, I played okay. You know, my away games were better than my home games. But I did all right in my first season. Second season, Andy lost his job, and we had a series of managers. I don't remember Stan Ternant.
Yeah,
he came in and he did not like me. So I went from
just straight off the bat.
Just straight off the bat, I was not his cup of tea, which is fair enough.
Yes.
So I didn't play at all. He ended up losing his job, much to my delight.
There you go.
Then Lee Clark came in. He was really young, I think, in his managerial career.
Yeah.
Introduced some really like kind of forward-thinking things into the club. But I think it was only like literally, you know, I was really excited from coming, thinking, right, this is my opportunity to get back into the team. But then I think it was quite quickly after he joined, I got it wasn't a super serious injury, but it was serious enough to keep me out for the season. So ended up the club sending me to Lilleshall for treatment, which is a place where people would go. England, you should train there. And yeah, I was coming up to the end of my contract. He'd probably never seen me play. Or seen me play maybe once or twice. Obviously wanted to use the budget to allocate to his own players and his own players that he thought would fit his style. Never seen me play, so I was kind of a casualty of say, look, I'm not going to renew your contract.
Right.
But I mean, at that time, I hadn't played football the best part of 10, 11 months.
Right. How old were you at this time?
About 27, 26, 27,
Okay.
20, about 26.
Yeah.
I hadn't played football for nearly a year. So... I was unfit, didn't have that confidence in the knee. I needed to build that confidence. Like, typically, if you come back from a fairly longish term injury, obviously there's that psychological aspect where you're kind of playing within yourself until you can...
not necessarily going all in on tackles.
Yeah, correct, because you're scared to re-injure it. So I had that going on, as well as being unfit, as well as being kind of a bit off the pace to try and secure a contract. So I went to Gillingham, I think, on trial. A couple of other clubs that I went to on trial, but I was well off the pace.
You knew it?
Yeah, well off it. I hadn't played in ages, trying to do pre-season, trying to get sharp. When you didn't have, you know, confidence in the knee, I was nowhere near ready to try and secure myself a contract. But that's what I needed to do. I'd had a daughter at the time who was a baby, so needed to be able to provide for her. And that was definitely the toughest time of my life, you know, having this young individual that you're responsible for and have to provide for as a father, but not having any source of income. And obviously I'd always played Championship League One. I was never fortunate enough to go to the Premier League and make the millions and millions of pounds that those footballers go on to do. So obviously then the financial pressures come.
Well, that was actually, and don't share any numbers, but what is the lifestyle of a League One Championship? I guess it's good, but it's far from. Yeah, it's not what you would expect. Not what you read in the papers, right?
No, far from it. And I think I don't mind. I can say it. I talk about it pragmatically now, so people can hopefully take lessons from it. But you know, at the height of my career, I was only ever on, like, say, £2,000 a week.
Right. Okay.
And for a young man, you know, that's it's
a good income.
Yeah, it's a good income, but not one that you're going to be able to. You know, you need to earn that every year to be able to sustain any kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you know, at that time, I think a lot of footballers, I think it's probably fair to say them today, you always think you're going to get that next contract. You never actually planning for the end.
Yeah.
And being fit, relatively young, and I suppose naive, 25, 26, you're always thinking, I'm going to get that one big contract that's going to change my life.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done any kind of financial planning for the end of my career, because I hadn't foreseen the end of my career being until I was 30, 31, 32, 35, hopefully, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that period where I went into masses of debt, I was super fortunate that I had two of my pals that were playing in the Premier League at the time who, you know, they staved off many walls from many doors at that time were giving me money. But because I was, you know, fairly proud, I couldn't just keep taking money off them.
Of course,
I wasn't able to, my morality wouldn't let me do that. So ended up having to move out the apartment, move back in with my partner's parents, move back in with my parents. And that was the toughest time, trying to reinvent myself to become, you know, because I always knew I had a degree of talent. Even outside of football, you know, I was fairly intelligent, did fairly well at school, fairly personable, high EQ, should I say. So knew I could do well, but didn't know what in. And that was the challenge, is like, what am I going to do to be able to provide for a family? How am I going to provide for a family? And those were really dark times. And I think, as I say, whereas before I'd faced that rejection at West Ham and I had my twin brother, what had then happened over the years, unbeknownst to me or him, but I'd kind of been in that football bubble. So my relationship with him had deteriorated, not because I'd done anything or he'd done anything, but, absence creates that divide. And I think that's what had happened with my twin brother at the time. And it wasn't until I came out of football that I'd even realised that he wasn't by my side anymore. I wasn't by his side, because I suppose he'd probably felt a degree of abandonment from me, but I didn't even realise I was abandoning him at the time, because I was just, as I say, with the Wimbledon boys, even with my mates who played for other clubs, because you're there going through, you all got the same goal and you're going through that together. You kind of band together as kind of brothers. And
well, it's a fraternity.
It is,
and I think
exactly
that that locker room spirit, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The highs, the lows, it's I was listening to a psychologist talk about it's the one place where men are able to physically touch each other in a way, you know what I mean? The only place where grown men will physically embrace and it not be, weird and awkward. It's unique in that sense. Unlike any other line of work where it would just be completely inappropriate to do anything, it's crazy. So your football career is winding down and it's evident it's coming to an end. How did you, what were you thinking at this point? What were the options? Coaching out?
There weren't many. And I knew I didn't want to continue in the world of football. I
didn't?
No, I'd felt I suppose a sense of abandonment by the sport that I'd grown up with, that I'd loved, I'd devoted
Were you angry?
Angry? No, I wouldn't say angry, no, but just let down. And I didn't want to, and maybe a bit of shame in myself that I hadn't gone on to what I thought I was going to actually do.
On reflection, do you think you didn't fulfill your potential?
Yeah, 100%.
You do?
100%. I definitely, now look, technically I wasn't the most gifted, absolutely not. There were players way more technically gifted than I was. But, a lot of players went on to play a lot higher than I did, and I did okay, Championship, League One.
Yeah.
But I think the focus was lost. I think I thought I'd made it before I had made it.
Yeah.
And making it isn't playing 10 games, 20 games, 50 games. Making it is being kind of really established in yourself and in your team. Not a couple of seasons and that's it, you make it. And I think that's the mistake that I made, and I think maybe some people make, is once you've played a season or 2 or 3 seasons, you think that is it. This is going to be it forever. Not knowing you've got to be at the races every single day.
But there's so many parallels with recruitment in that. I mean, how many times do you see somebody get to a certain level, on contract, it's 10K a week or whatever, and then they go, well, I'm loaded now. And then it just goes
1,000,000%. And I'm only where I am today in recruitment because I experienced those lessons. First the West Ham lesson, then secondly the lesson from being a professional footballer in the Championship, League One, and then losing it all because I took my eye off the ball, so to speak, or
off the gas.
Became complacent in what I was doing. 100%. And I see it all the time. I had been seeing it even before I had my own company, in consultants that get to a certain level of income and they're like, right, that's it. The company, I can do what I want. I can say what I want. I can do what I want. I don't need to show up.
Don't need to do the inputs
Don't need to do the inputs. This is it. I've made it. And always, unless they're very, very lucky, at some point it comes crashing down. And I think, that lesson that I learned, I still have to keep reminding myself, don't get me wrong, I'm not infallible. I still sometimes take my foot off the pedal. Sometimes I get burnt out. Sometimes maybe a little bit overexcited with things that have gone on in the past. But always kind of go back to that memory of, hold on, you made it when you was at Wimbledon, went on to Cardiff and Huddersfield, etc., and then that came crashing down very quickly. So that I always know it can happen. I always know now it can happen and probably will happen, but it's just being prepared for that,
My experience is identical. Every time it starts to go well, psychologically, you think, oh, right, finally it's happening. and then something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, okay, it's not it's not worth. And anything other than completely relentless.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't come together,
100%.
Tell us about how you found recruitment.
Yeah, stumbled into it. As I say, so fast forward, get released from Huddersfield, not very fit, trying to get contracts, need to provide for my daughter who's been born. And then the realization just hits, I can't keep doing this. I have to move in with my parents, masses of debt. I came out of debt, went back into debt. And I was like, all right, I need to get a job. This is it. The writing's on the wall. I need to get a job. So I'm thinking, what can I do? So going to the job centre, signed on working, what's it called, working allowance and all that stuff,
Job
doing that. Allowance. Job seekers allowance. I'm on the dole.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, whoa, this isn't what I envisaged. And I'm thinking, I need to get a job. So end up thinking, right, what can I do? Just having that sit down with myself, what can I actually go and do to make money? And I always thought, I've always been fairly popular in whatever circle I'm in.
Yeah.
Those kind of skill sets are probably akin to sales. I can build relationships with people.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into sales. So did odd sales jobs. I did door-to-door sales in Leeds first. That was commission only.
Right.
With a view that you'd end up owning your own company if you did well enough.
What was it called? Cobra Group?
Yeah, I can't remember who I was with at the time. It was selling Talk. They were selling Talk Wi-Fi.
And like a myriad, like a pyramid. And then you do well. And
pyramid, you get people under you, exactly that. So that was my first ever job.
Yeah.
And I remember this was in Yorkshire, just coming off being a professional footballer, knocking on doors. It was in the winter, so obviously it gets dark really early. And they were sending us to some pretty rural areas of Yorkshire to try and sell Talk Wi-Fi. And I remember I was probably like 2 weeks in, knocking on this lady's door. It's like 7:00 at night. She obviously looks through, sees a black guy at her door. She's like, I'm going to call the police. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm just here to sell Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
She's like, go away, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, cool. 4 minutes later,
oh, really? She literally did call the police.
Show up. Strange guy in the air, like, what are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. Luckily, they were all right with me. They were obviously did their checks or whatever, saw that I was legitimate. But I just thought, this isn't going to work. So,
it's great. That's hard labour.
Yeah, I thought this ain't gonna work.
I remember living in Wimbledon when I first moved to London.
So that's pretty posh.
Well, I lived in a first floor flat, so I never got any door knockers.
Yeah.
But then I moved to a house. It was a little rented house in Wimbledon. And we would get people. Do you remember people, ex-prisoners, selling tea towels?
Yeah.
Like, at like 9:30 at night in the driving rain. And part of me was like, pretty intimidating.
They make great recruiters now.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And he's like, I've just come out of jail. I've got this ID. I'm selling, I don't know, tea towels and all manner of madness in this basket he had. And of course, part of he's like, Jesus, that's a hard task, So, yeah, I mean, the door-to-door game is
it was tough, not for the faint of heart.
Nah.
And plus you're making no money. So I actually lost money on that because I was paying to travel around and made no commission, no sales. I figured out quite quickly the commission scheme was rubbish. You've got to make a lot of calls and a lot of sales to make any half decent money. So that's where I kind of was like, no, this is rubbish. There's got to be something else. And that's when I kind of found recruitment. A good friend of mine at the time, shout out to James Cooper, was doing recruitment. So, he told me about it. He had a couple of people and, the kind of money that you would make. So I ended up interviewing for recruitment companies. Actually got a job at his recruitment company.
Yeah. Still in Leeds?
No, this is in London now.
You're in London, back in London.
So back in London. And signed the contract, was about to sign, but then I'd got a call from another company that were offering me $4,000. So this was on £16,000 was the first job I accepted. This other company were going to offer £20,000. So I was like, well, it's $4,000 more. I'm going there. I didn't even care about the markets I was doing. I didn't care about the company or the history. It was just, well, they're paying me $4,000 more. I'm going there.
Yeah.
So I ended up going there, and that was a company called Venquist.
Okay.
So that's what was my first recruitment job at Venquist. Signed there, and
is that Barnaby Parker?
Barnaby Parker, Steve Garner, and they were young at the time. So again, this was just lucky. They were, I think, just over a year old when I joined them. Still fairly small. I think in their first office still.
Yeah. Did you know that you'd found your thing quite quickly? You know, at what point did you be like, I can do this?
It took a while. And again, another shameless name drop, more known in the name of recruitment. There was a guy, Sean Anderson.
Yeah.
So Sean started not that long after me.
Of course, Sean worked there, didn't he? Yeah.
Sean joined Venquis. He'd been a teaching recruitment in Australia.
That's right, yeah.
So Sean joined Venquis not that long after me. He'd had experience. I had no experience. So we'd go on lunches together. And this was in my first he joined literally about a month or two after me.
Right.
And we'd go for lunch. At the time we were based in Trafalgar Square. We'd go sit in Trafalgar Square and we just moan, oh, this is rubbish. It's not right. This is crap. This is rubbish. And it was actually Sean. I'll never forget it. We were on the steps facing, is it Nelson's? What's it? Nelson's column that's there, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Nelson's column. We're facing Nelson's column. And Sean was like, you know what? Let's not moan. From here on in, we don't moan about it. Let's give it 3 months.
Yeah.
And in 3 months, if it's still the same, we both quit. And I was like, okay. You probably might remember that conversation, but it was him who said, you know what? Actually, we're not getting anywhere moaning. Let's just quit it now, put our heads down for 3 months. In 3 months, if we're still not enjoying it and it's still rubbish, we'll leave. And I was like, shook hands, cool. Went back in that afternoon, and that was it. It went from there, you know, and it took me a good 9 months because I was entering a market by myself. I remember at the time, Steve Garner had said, go and do something else. I was doing energy trading. We weren't getting much traction. He said, go do something else in energy.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what? And he was like, go find it. So I did. And then the minute I found that and just put my head down, I had a couple of lessons, particularly from Steve, would call me in and really guide me, not in terms of the technical aspect, but just in terms of the mindset of being a top biller. You know, I was used to being in a changing room. I did a couple of things actually, which I won't say on camera, which nearly got me sacked, but they gave me the benefit of the doubt because I was used to football locker room banter, which wasn't fit for purpose in a business environment. But Steve, you know, gave me a lot of lessons in terms of just the mindset. So I remember, you know, a couple of examples of that. I was always kind of the class clown. And I remember he called me in and he was like, right, what do you want to be? You can either be the biggest biller here or you could be the class clown. You can't be both. Make your mind up. And he just got up and walked out and left me in the room. And I was just sat there like, and then I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to be the class clown anymore. So when people would come up to me, that's when I learned to be like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
Go away. We'll talk at lunch kind of thing. So just that very quick conversation with him taught me those kind of things. And as I say, after like 9 months, the penny dropped. Did my first 360 placement, and then they just started to roll in from there. And that's when I was like, right, I'm hooked. I figured out how this is. And a couple of things happened, and I look back because I was really robotic. I remember I had this call with a lady called Hannah from RWE at the time, and I spoke to her a couple of times. So actually, was just started to have a laugh with her. Dropped the phone, and Steve went, "That's recruitment."
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh,
yeah,
okay. It's not this robotic. Hey, can you give me jobs? It's more building those relationships." And that's when I started to put the pieces together. So all these micro conversations I'm having with Sean, with Steve, combining the lessons that I'd learned from football, was kind of how I became the recruiter that I went on to be. You know,
was running your own business always in your head? Did you always foresee that was your future, or was it a mad gamble?
Yeah, no, not running a recruitment business. But again, when I look back, there was a couple of things that I did which were, I was always probably destined to run my own business in some capacity. Because even when I came out of football, I tried to set up a fashion business, quite forward thinking at the time, actually, called My Fad, which was for fashion students to sell off their portfolio in an e-commerce. But there was no such thing as apps at the time. It was all desktop based. I tried to do that. My mates gave me money to build that, but failed miserably. I'd never heard of a SWOT or pest analysis. I'd never done go-to-market strategies. I was just like building this thing, and it would just run. But again, I learned a load of lessons failing in that. And then, again, the talk thing with the view that I wanted to open up my own office, have sales people under me. Again, that's probably my subconscious saying you want to do something. And then there were a couple of other things that I'd done, which meant I was probably more interested in being a leader of something, even though I didn't know what at the time. But no, when I left Venquis, The only reason I left was because I became pretty well known in my sector, and one of my clients was about to set up their own company to do consulting sales into the energy market, selling transformation. So I was like, well, that's a lot sexier than what I'm currently doing. I should probably make more money doing that. So that's the only reason I left, was to go and set that up with those guys.
Right.
And again, I learned so much about what to do and what not to do in setting up a business. So that was the first time I was introduced to go-to-market strategies, 30, 60, 90-day plans, SWOT pest analysis, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing with those guys. I was like, oh, this is how you set a company up. These are the steps you have to take to be prepared. You can't just go and set it up like the next day. So I went through that process with those guys, but they were doing a lot of the right things in terms of the steps it takes, the building blocks, but then probably a lot of the wrong things as well. I don't think they had the entrepreneurial side that it really takes in terms of, the graft, the hard hours. I think their view was, if you build it, they will come. That was it. We had this business. Well, why aren't people buying? From day one, and that was kind of the bit that I think they got wrong. But I could see it. Got to a point with those guys where I think it was, and again, we're going up against some of the big guys in consulting, right? You're trying to take money off EY, Baringa, whomever, even the smaller guys, PA. And they were after like 3 months, well, why aren't we winning work? I'm like, well, we have no consultants. At the time, it was more fractional consultants we were trying to sell. We had one consultant who was an architect, and no disrespect to him, but he wasn't the most commercially viable person that you could sell. That quite quickly didn't go anywhere.
Right.
And I remember at the time, if Barnaby's watching, I couldn't go back to Venquist because when I was leaving, he told me I'd be asking for my job back in 6 months' time. I was like, well, out of principle, I'm not going to ask for my job back. So ended up thinking, well, what else can I do? I was going to go into software sales. I started to interview with software companies because I thought, I know the basics of sales now. I can go and sell anything. And then a client called me up at the time when I was looking and said, look, can you help us out with this piece of work? I was like, yeah, sure. Ended up taking that on, and actually I said, all right, I'll send 5 CVs. I found 4, and I was just like, oh, I can't be asked to find any more. I need to go and interview. And I had this lady call me up who someone recommended her, and I didn't think she was right at the time for the job. I'm just going to send her. She ended up getting the job.
Right.
And then it was a fairly large, like a 20K perm invoice. So I'm like, oh, and I just accepted a job to sell, in the end, security services for the likes of BBC and stuff, where if they're in Yemen or whatever, you get them out. I just accepted a job for a company that did that. I think they were called, I can't remember what they were called. And I was due to start in like 3 weeks, but I just made this placement.
20 grand.
And I think the salary they were going to pay me was like 50 or 55 grand. And I was like, well, just nearly made half my salary on one placement. I'm going to give it a go.
Without even really trying.
Let me actually, I can do this by myself. I actually realised that I could do it by myself. I was like, oh, right, okay. So I said, all right, I'll give it 6 months. I'll see how I get on.
Because I guess the 20 grand buys you a couple of months.
That's exactly what my thinking was. I wasn't even thinking of tax on it. I've got 20 grand.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll worry about that later.
I've got 20 grand with which I can live on. So that's what I did. So the next 6 months, I said, I'll give it 6 months. And then I build another like $250,000 in that 6 months. So I'm like, I'm back.
We're back, baby.
So that December, I'll never forget it. I took all my mates to a nightclub in the West End, spent a lot of money. And I'm thinking, bam, I'm back on top. Here we go. Right, let's go. And I'll never forget it. This was 2015. And then 2016, I'd made a placement which was due to start like the second week of Jan. It was like another 20 grand fee. So I'm thinking, I'm walking into money in Jan. Here we go. I think I had like an NFI around 30 grand in the Jan. First email, 2016. I open up my laptop and it's the client. And all it says is, well, this is a surprise, ... I scroll down and the candidate's gone, sorry, I'm not taking the job. So I'm like, oh my
Happy New Year.
God. So I just drop the laptop, get back into bed, and I'm like lying there and I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, actually, and that was actually the moment that Vallum was truly born. Because at that moment, I'm lying there thinking, damn, oh God, I've just lost this money. And I was thinking, actually, sod it. I'm going to replace it. Again, the Sean Anderson mentality kicked in. I'm like, no, actually, I'm going to replace it and I'm actually going to build a company. And it was then that moment, right then and there, when this individual decided not to take the job, that I decided this was not going to be a lifestyle business. It was going to be something that I was going to try and scale.
Why? What was it? What happened in that moment?
I don't know.
You just crystallized your vision.
Saw, that rejection just was like, no, I'm not
having that.
I'm not having that. Actually, not only am I not having that, I'm going to build something which people talk about and people want to work for, and we're going to be bigger than we've ever been. And it was born out of that frustration from that moment that I decided I was going to build the company with a view that I was going to, and at the time, I'm not even exit. I wasn't thinking I'm going to try and exit. It was just, I'm going to build a company.
Yeah.
And that was my only
How
thought.
long ago was that?
That's 2016.
So
9 years 2nd of Jan 2016.
Okay. And wind the movie forward to today, how big is Vallum Associates?
So we've gone on iterations. So we're now just sub 50 people.
Wow.
Office in London and office in Boston.
Boston, Lancashire,
Boston,
or Boston,
USA. Boston, USA.
Well, you didn't fancy Boston in Lancashire?
Didn't fancy, but I didn't even know there was a Boston in Lancashire.
It's the Brexit heartlands, mate.
Right.
It's the most Brexity town in England.
I probably won't go there then.
Nah, exactly.
Sorry, people of Boston, Lancashire. Probably won't visit it.
So London and the UK and USA, 50 heads.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the journey you've been on.
Yeah, it's been a tough one, and
it always is, right?
Yeah, and whistle stop tour of kind of what happened. So set the company up, decided I'm going to scale it. Ended up taking some people from industry because I think a bit of the doubt kicks in. Like, I can't do this alone.
The imposter syndrome.
Yeah, let me get some help. So I ended up taking some people from industry. One who was the former managing director of a big energy company who'd gone on a big scale up, so OVO Energy, come through the ranks, scaled. So he ended up joining me. He brought someone with him who did operations, and then another mutual contact that we all had came in as kind of advisor. But that was the first board of Vallum Associates, and they were all great guys. All great guys, came with great ideas. But I think the challenge was they weren't from recruitment. And bearing in mind, I've only been in recruitment myself for 3 years at the time when I set the company up. So I don't know anything. All I know is how to build. I do not know how to. I've never managed a team.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't even know it was called NFI or MBV. That's how green I am in all of this. But I've got this company.
Yeah.
And these guys couldn't teach me that. And I think the challenge that we had was I was doing 99% of the sales and the revenue, but we had staff. We had an office, so all these overheads I'm basically responsible for producing the revenue for.
Yeah.
And then similarly, I'm trying to manage the team. I'm actually doing the physical operations in the office because my business partners at the time weren't based in the office. So laptop, if we got a new starter, I'm doing all onboarding, setting up the laptops, welcome packs. I'm selling.
It's hardcore, isn't it?
Finances, even I'm having to double check the VAT returns, double check the payroll, everything. So I'm basically doing everything.
But it's the only way to learn.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
That was the baptism fire I actually needed to understand the business.
I would go as far to say that if you try and do it any other way, you just got to be putting out every fire yourself.
Yeah.
Because my experience is always like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Now I understand what VAT is.
Yeah.
Now I understand what PAYE is or whatever. And I feel like you can read about these things in a book all you like.
Yeah.
But until you physically go VAT in, VAT out, how much away with it, it's all of a sudden you go, okay, it all crystallizes.
100%. Even like management of cash flow. So my very basic understanding with cash flow management at the time was how much money have I got in the bank?
Yeah.
And what's our run rate? Yeah. How long can I pay salaries for based off of the money that I've got coming in?
Going back to that VAT thing, I've been spending the VAT on the wages.
I'm not factoring in corporation tax at this time
exactly,
till after, because I haven't learned it till my second year. My first year, I'm like, how long can I go and pay the wages until I've got to pay all these things?
I'll tell you, I've told this story before. This is a mad story. This is a story that I've told, and it is about the failure of the school system to educate young people on how you can start a company.
100%.
Because now, look, if you're somebody who subscribes to the idea that we're all enslaved by the system and they don't want us to really be entrepreneurs because then we won't be workers and all that, whatever, right? I thought that once I'd paid corporation tax, that all the money that was left over was mine.
Yeah.
So I was drawing down, I was going, right, paid my corp tax, taking all the money out, spending it.
Yeah.
And then I got a tax bill.
Yeah, where's your income?
And I went,
Yeah.
I've already paid tax. So I was like, no, you've got to pay tax. That's corporate. Now you've got to pay dividend tax. I was like, I've got no money left.
Yeah.
I've spent it all.
Yeah.
And so, but what I mean is like, I'm maybe not the world's most intelligent. I'm not thick either.
Yeah.
And if I think that, so do other people.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
I'd like to think listen, I'm not a genius, but I'm clever. You know, I did well in school.
Yeah.
But all of these things I'm learning as I'm going, as you say, the tax system, how it actually works.
Yeah.
You know, PAYE, all of these things I'm having to learn on the hop.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a real baptism of fire. And actually, again, fast forwarding to why I ended up exiting those guys is because they couldn't help me scale the company. They had good ideas, great intentions. They wanted to do well, but they just didn't have the knowledge that I needed. When I'm the most clever person in the room and I know nothing, that's dangerous, right? So I realized that I can't be educating you guys on how we scale this because I don't know myself. I've never done it. I don't have the experience. You know, I don't have the knowledge. All I know is I know I can sell recruitment.
Yeah.
That's all I can do. All the other parts of running a business, I have no experience. So ended up, again, through actually Anton Ferdinand. So Anton's one of my best mates. Him and Rio own a football agency. They look after young footballers. And at the time, they had a young man by the name of Kieran Petrie, who was at Arsenal, who they were looking after. And Anton's going to see Kieran and he meets Kieran's dad. And for whatever reason, he's drawing and they're talking. I think Mike Petrie, who's now my business partner, I think Mike was dressed, smelling quite nice. Anton's like, oh, what do you do? And he says, oh, I own a recruitment company. So Anton obviously plugs me and says, oh, my mate's got a recruitment company, blah, 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 blah. So Mike's telling him his story. And at the time, Mike's a senior at TechStream. Earthstream, TechStream, CloudStream, all those guys. So Mike was like, oh, can you speak to my mate? And at this time, we were actually going to set up another recruitment company that sells into the corporate functions of sports clubs. So obviously, you know, they run like any other business. They all have HR, ops,
finance, marketing.
Correct. So we're going to set up a company.
And actually, they're pretty big businesses these days.
They're massive businesses. It would have worked, but I'll never forget it. So we're going to set this company up. We called it Stadia Global. And we were going to start in football and then diversify to rugby, cricket, whatever. So we're about to set this company up. Anton's like, let's talk to Mike. He'd be able to help us. So he sets a meeting up with Mike at the CloudStream office. I go over there, meet Mike. And at this time, remember, I'm running everything from Vallum's perspective. So our office is in London Bridge at the time. We got a small, like 6-7 man office. I think at the time I had 6 staff. And my phone is going every 10 minutes, either a customer or one of the team. Because remember, again, 90% of the client base, if not 99% of the client base, is all mine. So I'm dealing with the clients, I'm dealing with all the staff, I'm dealing with running every process, I'm dealing with every office issue. So my phone was literally going every 10 minutes. And I'm in this meeting and I'm like, I've got to take this. So the meeting finishes and thank Mike for his time. We leave. Mike calls me after about 10 minutes and is like, don't do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, you've got enough on your plate. You've probably got a business from the looks of it that looks like you've got potential. You're not going to be able to take another business on at this time. You need to either stop that and do this new one or focus on what you've already got. And my advice is focus on what you've got because you've got something. So I'm like, oh, okay, so do that. He's like, look, let's meet, I can help you. Because at the time, they just raised, I think, like a load of cash in private equity to scale with a view that they were going to exit. So they'd raised, I can't remember, 30 mil or whatever. They were buying people left, right. And so they did the Earthstream transaction, obviously went on to do the Exceed transaction and stuff. So the plan was that Mike was going to help me come in, look at what I've got, help me scale it, just with advice, with a view that they would acquire me into their group as a potential acquisition target. So I'm like, awesome.
Great,
This is great. He's going to help me. He's going to give me the knowledge that I don't have. If I've got a question, I can just ask him. He'll give me advice. He was going to introduce me to all of that. They're kind of like higher ups. I think, is it Paul Beak, Adam Martin. I was going to introduce me to all these guys. I'm going to have them in my harem of advisors that can help me. And so fast forward, we're doing that. We just started the conversation, and I think things internally for them had kind of gone awry. COVID obviously hits. Not long after, I just met him, literally probably about 4 or 5 months after I've just met him, COVID hits. See, everyone goes into panic stations, probably the private equity firm thinking, oh God, what's going on? So whatever happened internally for them, and they were like, well, we're going to exit. Now their current, the tech stream, we're going to exit.
Right.
So Mike calls me up, I was like, Malv, look, I know I said we were going to hopefully try and scale you, acquire you, but it's not going to happen anymore. Actually, I think I'm leaving. Do you want to maybe have a conversation about me coming to join you if that's possible at some point? So that's what we did. Decided and came together, and that's where we kind of really kicked off Vallum 2.0.
Right.
Because these guys have obviously got experience.
And he's not joining you for a lifestyle opportunity.
He's not joining me for a lifestyle opportunity. This is when I first actually learned what an exit potentially looks like. I've got no knowledge of this. I have no idea. I know people buy businesses, but I'd never really heard that it was a real common thing in recruitment, particularly, and obviously less so now. Very difficult to scale an exit, but still possible.
Yeah.
But these guys have come, having been on that journey with TechStream, whatever they're called, CloudStream, TechStream. Yeah. They've been on that initial journey, and they're like, we want to do this. So
you don't scale a business to 50 heads without having a culture of high performance. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe the culture that you've created at Vallum Associates to get to where you've got to?
Do you know, we're going through a huge, and this is probably spilling some secrets for us, but we're going through a massive transition of actually trying to create more of that environment. And we failed many times at it. So where we are successful is we've got some fantastic individuals. We've had some fantastic individuals who've been and gone. We've got some fantastic individuals who are consistent, and we've got some clients that are really great with us. So we've been able to build that stickiness with quite a few customers now, where we've got a good contract to book. We're approaching kind of 250 now. We've done some things outside of recruitment, kind of ancillary services that have created revenue. So we've done really well in that aspect, which gives us good financial fortitude to scale. Now what we're trying to do is build a world-class 360 business alongside. So we currently have a really strong 170 model, whatever, 28, whatever it is. We've got a really strong, that part of the business. Now in terms of new logo 360, we're trying to shift the culture a bit more back to the old school, to be honest, of getting our consultants out, building, just customers coming to them for who they are. And we've got one or two that are now really starting to transition to that world. And we're actually gone on a complete kind of sea change of the heads in that 360 business to people that are kind of suited that way. Everyone who's kind of in the room who's now that mindset has joined us within the last kind of 8 months. So we're going through those peaks and troughs, and what comes of that of people, obviously non-competes, etc. Them kind of learn. So we're going through a transition period of our culture to shift towards back to the old school a little bit. We're not going to be like one of those that you have to stand up on the phone if you haven't hit your KPIs. We're never going to be able to get back to that world. Nor do I think we want to, but there is a middle ground, I think, to be had between the new world and the old world. I think if we can, because we haven't yet, if we can implement that old school mindset using and embracing some of the new school tools, then I think we'll kick on. If we fail to do that, then we won't. We'll stay where we are, or worse, we'll shrink back down to 25, 30 heads. That's the unknown. I think we're at a crossroads here for if we're going to be successful. This year is a massive year for us to try and implement that change in a real 360 business with individuals who are wired a bit more we used to be wired, right? They don't want to lose. They're out there. We recognize they will lose from time to time, but the mindset is, I'm not going to lose. And I've got a couple of people who I sit opposite in the office, actually, Ruby, Jordan. I do see in them, and I love it. And this is going to sound really bad, right? But if they blank a month, I can see the hurt in them. And I don't want them hurting. That's not what I'm saying. But what I enjoy is that, because I used to be the same. That's exactly
it's the tearful Malvin Kamara of 8 years old crying.
It's exactly that. And that I see that in them too every day. And there are probably other people in the but because I sit opposite them, I see it. And I know when they're not billing, it hurts them. I don't think they care that it's not for they're for themselves. It's the pride they have in their own performance. And I see it. I see them talking to each other, and they're not even doing it to sell to me about I can see they genuinely hurts them that they've not billed for that month. And they are hell-bent the next month to ensure, and Ruby's just done it. I think she went on the longest period that she's not billed for like 2 months. And she was like, I could see she was like getting anxiety over it. I'm the same. I used to get anxiety if I didn't bill or if I don't answer my phone or if I don't work. And I don't want that. That's obviously not good for one's mental health. I don't want that. But she was like determined to bounce back. She'll probably do 50K this month. Yeah. And she's like, boom, I'm back. And that joy, she's like, yeah. Right. And that is, again, I'm not trying to advocate. I want everyone to get anxiety if they don't bill. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But it's the mindset of, I've not hit my personal targets this month. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I achieve it next month.
But it's the same story as New Year's Day when you opened your laptop and had a dropout. Yeah. You've got a choice to make. Yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah, sit and moan about it, or you can do something about it.
Correct.
Right, and that's it. And I think they are the only two choices. Yeah. What else have you got? So, and I think recruitment is fundamentally a story of comebacks. Yeah, because it is a roller coaster, and it is all about how you pick yourself up when it doesn't go your way, which in our line of work, because it's so much of it's beyond your ultimate control. Yeah. You're dealing with humans, they let you down, they're unpredictable, hard to forecast what might happen. Yeah. My final question before we bring our session to a close is, if we wind the movie forward a couple of years, what's your vision for your business and the future?
Yeah, when the Euro Mills retire, done. Nah. You know what I think is to hopefully have accomplish that goal of becoming a real powerhouse in 360 recruitment, scaling to 100 heads. I'd love that, to see us really make waves in the UK and in the US. And again, in the US, we haven't spoken about the US business, but the US business has gone through iterations of ups and downs. We've learned a lot of hard lessons in the first 2 years, but also a lot of good lessons. And to see Vallum become a household name in the US in our core markets, as well as in the UK and Europe to become a household name, is the goal for me. The financial rewards that come with that are almost a byproduct of that success. So I don't have a number in my head, as long as I'm able to provide for my family moving forwards. Great. But the goal, I think, for certainly the next few years, yes, we do want to exit at some point, but certainly the goal over the next few years is to become a household name in our geographic regions, UK, Europe, the US. Where we go from there, I don't know. I think I'm still young enough that there's some unknown answers that I'll probably answer at some point in the future, but definitely to get to at least 100 heads and become a name, but also known for quality in our vertical markets as well, right? And have a good reputation. You hear a number of organizations that have a bad reputation, and all of us do things wrong. Yeah. Right? We're not all perfect. We've done a lot of things wrong over the last few years, made the wrong decisions, but I'd like to think that in the next 5 years, we're known both internally and to our competitors as a brand that represents quality, and also to our customers in our geographic regions. I think that would be awesome.
That feels like a really good opportunity to bring it to a close. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure, and hopefully you'll come back again in a couple of years' time when you've achieved all of those goals, and
fingers
we'll talk
crossed.
Again.
All won the Euro Mills.
Thank you very much. Either way. Malvin Kamara, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, man.